Rajiv Jain, Portfolio Manager and Managing Director of Vontobel Asset Management, joins us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Rajiv, good to have you back on the program. First off, are you going to be closely monitoring the State of the Union address tonight?
Frankly, not really, because I think as you just suggested a few minutes ago, I mean, there's going to be a lot of political rhetoric, not really much substance, given this being an election year.
Okay, well, let's talk about the markets then, because we actually saw markets closing down in Europe and the U.S. What happened to the steam coming out, I guess, from the big rally that we saw at the beginning of this year? Do you think we're going to see an up year? How long do you think these gains will last for?
Well, it's always difficult to make a forecast, whether the market's going to be up or down. I mean, but what's interesting is if you look at last year, in January, it's remarkable that the performance in terms of sectors and stocks, it's very, very similar. In other words, some of the worst performing stocks in 2011 they are doing the best this year, right? So whether you divide by quality or beta or just from a profitability perspective. So what is telling us so far, and as I said, it's really a month, it really doesn't tell us too much, is that there seemed to be a little bit of snapback reaction of what really got hit pretty hard last year.
Okay, yeah, so snapback reaction, but I'm wondering if these gains will last, considering you yourself say that the EFSF is not a solution in Europe, and people are thinking that this LTRO might be one on the European side, but you still get a factor in Greece, right? It might default on its March 20th payments, and the problems are still not solved.
Well, I think from our perspective, we feel that nothing has really been solved. I mean, obviously, this LTRO is effectively quantitative easing, or in simple English, printing money, right? So since ECB couldn't legally have done what Fed did, I think they're doing it in a backdoor way through the banking system, right? So it's kind of surprising why markets, equity markets react because the auction went well. Well, the auction will go well because the ECB is giving money to the banks, and banks are, in other words, and they're turning around and buying the bonds. But if you look at the Portuguese bond yields, I mean, where are they? They're still creeping up. So the question is, when do we move from Greece to Portugal? And Greece, by the way, or even Italy for that matter, if you go back to the bond yields end of September when the markets were in a total panic, well, total panic or somewhat of a panic, the yields are still meaningfully higher, and that's after and the numbers that ECB is pushing through is actually very significant. So as you said before, I mean, there is no real solution except we're pumping more liquidity in a solvent situation, which is which helps in the short run, but not really a long-term solution.
Yeah, that's right. So money being pumped in the system, you shouldn't be fighting that trend. In fact, I think that's helping a lot of the earnings that we're seeing. Take Apple, for example. I mean, boy, this company, how do you sell $13 billion worth of technology in just about 3 months' time? Do you think that's the best space to be in?
Well, technology, again, we feel, there's a massive gap between have and have not. So the haves are obviously Apples of this world and even Google. But there's a whole slew of others, because if you're shoulder of RIM or Nokia, I mean, you obviously aren't feeling good. So put technology in one basket is probably not a good idea. We feel that there's a significant differentiation between companies which are doing well, and it's a very small subset, and a bulk of them which probably wouldn't be necessarily doing well. I mean, look at just the semiconductor industry, broadly speaking. I mean, it isn't exactly doing very well.
All right, Rajiv, thanks for talking to us tonight. Good to see you. Rajiv Jain of Vontobel Asset Management joining us from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.